Hey, what's up? Chris Sider here, and today we're going to be talking about the ins and the outs of why ignoring your ex will actually make them come back. Now, if you're anything like me, the first thing you're probably wondering about before anything is, wait, do I even have a chance of getting my ex back? Well, if that's you and you're sitting there and wondering that, I have great news for you. I've actually put together a special quiz designed to answer this exact question for you. This quiz took me a few months to come up with, and it's pretty simple. It should only take you about 2 minutes to complete. You will be taken to a page that asks you a bunch of questions about you, your ex, and your situation. Then based on how you answer those questions, we're going to give you an idea of what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. We're also going to be taking some of your answers and giving you specialized advice. So if you're interested in taking that quiz, all you have to do is simply look in the description below this YouTube video, click on the link that you see there. Again, all you have to do is simply look in the description of this YouTube video and we will hook you up. All right, let's begin.
Hey guys, what's up? Today we're going to be talking about why exes come back after you ignore them. There's a lot of psychological research out there that I'd love to cover with you, some of the things I've never talked about before, so I'm actually really pumped to get started. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Chris Sider. I actually work with people through breakups. So if they're going through a breakup, I either help them either get over their ex or help them most of the time get their exes back. So I've had a lot of experience going down and kind of grinding away with people and understanding what works and what doesn't work when it comes to breakups. And specifically, one thing that me and my team have noticed over the years is that exes seem to come back after you ignore them. And so that got me thinking, why? You know, it's easy for me to have these assumptions. It's easy for me to sit there and watch what happens and watch how many people are ignoring their exes and seeing how the exes are coming back. But why? What processes go into explain that? And so I did a lot of research and actually found 3 or 4 psychological principles that I'm going to be covering with you today. The first one's pretty standard. You may have heard me talk about this before. It's called reactance. It's the theory of reactance. This is actually one of the reasons that the no contact rule works. So what is reactance? Well, reactance basically states that people are born with certain behavioral freedoms. I have the freedom to talk to you right now. But if that freedom becomes threatened or someone tries to take it away, we react in a way to try to get the freedom back. So if you consider a strategy like the no contact rule, something that we talk about a lot through on this YouTube channel and on my website, the no contact rule is essentially you taking a behavioral freedom from your ex away. You're taking the freedom of them talking to you away from the equation by ignoring them, right? So it makes sense that they try to react in a way to try to get that freedom back. And there's a lot of different reactions you'll find exes have in circumstances like that. They sometimes will call you incessantly. They'll call your friends. They'll text you. They'll show up at your house. They'll show up at your work. They'll try to call your family. There's all sorts of reactions. I've seen a lot of crazy things over the years with reactance. And again, that's probably the most straightforward definition of why ignoring someone works. But I wanted to dive deeper, and so that's why I'd like to talk to you today about the Zeigarnik Effect. Now, the Zeigarnik Effect, it's the basic definition of it is people remember uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. And I always like to explain it by the idea or the use of cliffhangers in TV shows, but I think I actually have a better explanation that we can kind of use for our purposes here today. So when you look at this, well, what's the first thing that you see? Well, you see a circle, but you see the circle's uncompleted. You look at that and its existence annoys you because you know there's just that little area right there that you want to fill in to make it a complete circle. Well, when you ignore your ex, this is kind of what happens to their brain. You essentially, if you ignore them, you're not telling them why. That annoys them. They want to create a completed task. They want to fill in the blanks and have some logical reason for why you're ignoring them. And it intrigues them and it interests them. And they start chasing you to try to fill in that circle, if you will. So By ignoring your ex and not giving them a reason for why you're ignoring them, you actually put them in a position where they're forced to chase you to find that reason out. Now, that's all well and good, but it still really doesn't help us explain some of the ins and the outs of why ignoring someone can actually, or being a little bit more to the point here, why playing hard to get works. Because that's really what ignoring your ex is all about, or ignoring a guy or a girl is all about. You're trying to appear more attractive to them. Well, that's where the uncertainty principle comes into play. Now, the uncertainty principle is something that is new that I've never talked about before, but it's probably essential to explaining why men and women find those who play hard to get attractive. Now, there's a lot that goes into attraction, but especially when it comes to uncertainty, we tend to be more attracted or intrigued by uncertainty as opposed to certainty. And there's a lot of research backing this up, and I'm actually going to tell you 2 stories here. The first story is the rat story. All right, so this is kind of a cool story I'm about to tell you here, so make sure you listen up. Scientists were wanting to determine how rats would react given certain rewards versus uncertain rewards. So what they did is they actually took 2 rats and created 2 mazes, right? So the rat, if they completed the maze, were going to get cheese, which is kind of like the ultimate reward for a rat, right? So they end up taking these 2 rats and putting them in 2 different mazes. One maze was very complex. They had to work to find their way to get to the cheese. And the other maze was not complex. It was basically a straight shot right to the cheese. They could see the cheese from the starting line. Now, what they found, common sense would have us dictate that rats don't really have a lot of self-control, right? So the second that they see that cheese at the end of the starting line on the easy maze, they're going to just dive in and devour it. They found actually the opposite was true. They found that because the rats saw the cheese, they understood, hey, I can get that cheese whenever I want, and I'm not that interested right now. I'll get it when I'm hungry. Versus the rat who actually had to work to get the cheese. The uncertainty of having that reward. The second the rat saw the cheese, they devoured it. Now, this tells a lot about human behavior. It tells a lot about uncertainty and how when you create an uncertain principle, when you let's say you're texting your ex and you do not respond right away. You, in fact, ignore them for a couple of hours. That actually can be more effective than responding right away all of the time because there's an uncertainty. When we're uncertain about how someone feels, that is actually more intriguing to us. Now, the second story I tell you is going to be a little bit more closer to home. It's going to explain why uncertainty can make us more attractive. So in this particular example, scientists took two men and a woman. Right? So the men were given a very simple directive. They were supposed to go to Facebook and rate the woman's profile. That pretty simple, right? Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least attractive, 10 being the most attractive. So the 2 men were then given different directives. They said, okay, one of the men can tell the woman exactly what they rated as the profile. The other man can not tell the woman what they rated. And so the first man gave the profile like a 7, right? And he told the woman and she's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. The second man said, well, I gave your profile something and I gave it an interesting score, but I can't tell you. And they were looking to see which of the men the woman found more attractive. And it turned out that the woman found the man who would not tell her what he rated her as more attractive. Uncertainty. The simple introduction of uncertainty into the equation automatically made man number 2 in this example more attractive. Why? Because you're not telling the woman exactly what she got. In fact, you're ignoring the fact that, hey, the other guy told her exactly what she got, and I'm not going to. And that uncertainty made things a little bit more attractive. And so if you're ever sitting there and wondering why we actually recommend something like the no contact rule to get an ex back, or simply ignoring or waiting a few hours before you respond to your ex, Now, obviously, everything's situational, but if you're wondering why we recommend, these are the psychological concepts that we have found to be true over time. This is why it works. So, if you've ever wondered about uncertainty, if you've ever wondered about reactance or the Zeigarnik Effect, or simply ignoring your ex, and someone's giving you a hard time about that, simply point them to this video so that we can prove to them that uncertainty, ignoring, reactance, things like these work.